hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Frame Rate, where we at High Films review the latest films on streaming. If we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Patrick Richter, executive producer at Pie Films.
I'm Justin Stillmaker, a writer and director at Pie Films.
And me, Yajaira Justin, executive producer at Pie Films.
So this week on Frame Rate, where we tell you whether to cut or keep films on all of the streaming services, this week we're going to do The Half of It on Netflix, The Lemon on Hulu, and we'll also be reviewing Bad Education on HBO.
Today on Frame Rate, the film I chose was, once again, I'm kind of digging into what Netflix has to offer, trying to get to the bottom of their algorithm and their aesthetic. And so this week I did The Half of It, directed by Alice Wu. It's a little bit of teen coming-of-age story, a little bit of a rom-com, a little bit like it follows this young Asian girl who lives in like deep Minnesota. So, first thing I have to say, it has a terrible title. The Half of It is very forgettable. It feels more like a sitcom than anything. But the film itself was actually quite good. It was quite charming. It had a nice twist. It reminded me a bit of a movie called The Duff that I know Jahaira is a big fan of.
Love it.
They take the rules of the rom-com and they invert it, mix it with the teen film. It's really sweet. It has great little music cues. Like there's a great Sharon Von Etten song on there. It's shot rather well. I don't think it's going to end up on any of my best of the year list, but it's like for the Netflix, it's one of the best examples. Like, well, this was super charming. It had, it kind of like inverted the story. It was fun. You could sort of see how the algorithm itself was designed, like rom-com meets teens, meets Asian, meets white dude. It has a bit of an LGBTQ story in that the twist on it is that she's helping a guy write love letters to the like hot girl in school. But she, in fact, is also in love with the same girl, she realizes, as she's writing the texts and letters. It's just a really sweet story. It's her and her father. They work at a train yard. It has a lot of the quirks of an indie movie. Like she has to take care of the train yard. The young guy is obsessed with cooking. He's got a big goofy family. He's on sports teams. There's wacky side boyfriends. It has all that stuff, but it's all played instead of like in a Judd Apatow movie, like a Blockers or something where it would play it a lot, or The Duff where it would play it a little more big. It plays everything close and low and more realistic. It really is like an indie film mixed with that kind of like teen movie. So I found it interesting because it was kind of hopping between three genres, which is a bit like the Netflix thing we've been talking about, where they're kind of like trying to hit a couple movies with one. But I just thought it was like a really charming. The lead actress was excellent. Everyone in it was just like super adorable. Can't say it's like, again, the filmmaking was not noticeable, but also not noticeably bad. So I think for Netflix, that's a bit of an improvement. So, I mean, besides the terrible title, I would highly recommend The Half of It.
Okay, so you're telling me that it gets you on base, but isn't necessarily a home run?
Yeah, it's definitely a double. It's like wow, I totally watched that. I will remember a couple little moments of it. It still has a bit of forgettableness. There's no like incredible lead. There's no one where like, wow, that director is gonna go far, or like All the Boys I Loved Before, where like that lead is like she's a movie star, and so is that Noah Centineo. Like there's nothing quite that much of a pop off on it, but it's also not trying to because it's a little more subdued and quiet. But I was totally into it the whole time. I didn't look at my phone. I thought it was really charming, warm. You could totally watch it with the whole family. I think everyone would get into it. It's got a little bit for something. And it found a nice little twist on the teen movie and the rom-com. So I usually don't tend to go for like these young rom-coms, but this one worked.
That's the one where it's Choo Choo. Isn't that what they called the lead actress?
Yeah.
I was browsing through my Netflix queue and I was like, The Half of It. Is this a new series? I also thought it was like the name of like a sitcom or something, but
it's the opposite of that one you watched last week, exactly. Patrick, where it looks like a movie and it was in fact a TV series. This movie's the opposite, where it's like it has lots of fun little characters. It kind of reminded me a bit of a 90s movie, and the director, she hadn't made a film since like 2004, and I'm sure she's been around like helping get things produced. But like again, it has all these really good elements. I wish it would have pushed a little more, I guess, broad, or like it just like, American indies tend to be my genre I have the most trouble with, but it was still, again, super charming. I think both you guys would like it. I think it stays in the picture. Keep it.
It's great. I definitely think I'm going to watch that now.
Yeah, I think you would like it, Patrick. Or we can debate if you don't like it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's something that I think was cute.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and usually I have like backup recommendations, but I would highly recommend this. Like, I do think that Netflix does a good job with these sort of teen rom-coms. Like we've talked about All the Boys I've Loved before. I mean, the kissing booth isn't really for me, but I've seen it enough that I'm like, oh, this is charming. It does its job. I think there's a sequel.
Hey, man, don't hate on the kissing booth.
Yeah, I love the kissing booth. It's super cute.
I feel at 36, I should just not be watching the kissing booth. I feel it's just not for me. Patrick, you got a couple more years.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I feel
Yeah,
like
he's got a couple more years. Yeah. Because he's like almost the same age as the lead actors playing 18-year-olds at this point. So,
Yeah.
Well-
You're still covered.
yeah, under that umbrella.
that's awesome.
That's great. Well, the film I watched for this week's Frame Rate was The Lemon on Hulu, directed by an African-American first-time female director, Janixa Bravo, who basically, her backstory in a nutshell, she graduated from NYU and did a bunch of short films. That's kind of how she got into, directing narrative. And all of her short films, they were sort of festival darlings. Like, I think she won like a grand jury prize at Sundance and had a couple things at South by and Tribeca and like all over the place. So she co-wrote this film with Brett Gelman, who they were dating at the time that they wrote it, and they're now married, so they're like a couple writing duo. The film it's got quite a few names in it, actually, and it's weird. It's sort of like a ensemble outside of Brett Gelman, but it's...
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at this cast list.
Yeah, Judy Greer, Michael Cera, Neil Long, and then Jillian Jacobs, who I know we worked with her last year, Jahaira, so this must have been, right before that film. Basically, the movie was excruciating. It was genuinely painful to sit through. And it's...
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was so bad. And it's weird because it's almost done up in, like, vignettes, like I was starting to say. But the basic summary, like if we're going broad strokes, it's about a guy's life unravels after his wife, who it just happens is blind. Right, so he's got this blind wife who like leaves him for a hotter man. So he basically starts having a midlife crisis, and his whole fucking world explodes, and we just watch this downward spiral. But it's and that might even sound more interesting than it was. It's really, really bizarre. And like this guy, he's a failed actor, so he keeps going to these like really painfully awkward.
You keep saying
auditions.
Keep going, better.
What's that?
He keeps bringing up buzzwords from like 5 years ago of movies I don't want to watch.
No, you're making like a Mad Libs of a movie I definitely don't want to see.
Oh my God.
It's like you're just...
Well then, yeah, you definitely want to ignore this one. No, but he's this Gelman's character, he's a failed actor, keeps going to these really painfully awkward auditions and shoots for like incontinence commercials and adult diapers and just these really like things that are like kind of childish and stupid, but they're not done in a childish or stupid way. It's just like deadpan. And then so in his spare time, he's like a teacher of a drama school, and Michael Cera plays sort of his star pupil. Michael Cera, he sort of has this like weird jealousy towards. They've got this really weird and highly inappropriate scene where he invites Michael Cera over for dinner, and he at times it seems like he's going to murder him. At times it seems like he's going to rape him. Like it's totally inappropriate and like just really bizarre and like it's just odd. The worst thing, though, that I think was in this movie, there's this Passover scene in the middle. There's like the whole middle section is dedicated to him going home to his family's Passover. But it's just super long and none of the characters are likable. And they basically like, there's literally a scene where they sing a full song about matzo balls. And like each member of this family, and there's like 12 of them, takes a verse. So like this, you're on this scene for like 10 minutes and you're like, why are we here? I don't care. Like it's so bad. But that being said, the film is in the style of like Brett Gelman's comedy, right? Which Rolling Stone sort of coined as alt loser comedy, where it basically the whole sort of the whole sort of pitch is like it aims at making the audience uncomfortable, and in the in that awkwardness, that's where the comedy is found. But for me, like that is just not at all the style of. I mean, there's films that do it good, and I'll talk about those a little bit in like the references, but this just did an absolutely horrible job of doing it. It was, like I said, it was painful to watch.
So you're saying it's a lemon?
Yeah, it you know what? Actually, there was the headline for the Rolling Stone article was like, there's many things you could call the film, but it's not false advertising when it called itself the lemon.
Yeah. It looks like I had seen that poster a couple times, Patrick, and I kept going. I was like, this sort of looks like it was made by Adult Swim, like their live action stuff, which
yes.
Which is always trying to do the like, oh, it's hard to watch. It's kind of funny, but like, I don't know, Brett Gelman, Tim and Eric already exist. Rick Alvison makes movies.
Right.
Like, I gotta believe there's better versions of this.
Oh, yeah.
And based on what you're saying, there is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely recommend on Hulu Greener Grass, which I know they're in many ways dissimilar, but
Totally.
In sort of the absurdist way that Greener Grass tells its story. It's hugely dark comedy, but that is so interesting, and it's so, the world it creates, it's odd and it's quirky, but like I want to know more about it. Even The Lobster, right? Like The Lobster, which we were talking about a little bit last week, that's on Netflix.
Yep.
There were scenes where I felt like Gelman's character was trying to be Colin Farrell's character in The Lobster. It felt like that.
Yeah, I can see that. Even as you were describing it, that's what I thought of, Patrick. That's like, that seems pretty spot on.
Right. And then lastly, I mean, you got loser comedy. It's also on Hulu, I believe. Napoleon Dynamite is sort of the king of that whole genre. So if you're in the mood for a classic, you got to go Napoleon Dynamite.
The Lemon, what do you think the budget on that was? Because like, I'm fascinated by these movies still getting made.
I would say $2 million probably.
It better be $2 million. If it's more than that.
It had a lot of names. Yeah.
There are a lot of names, but they shot it basically, like there weren't that many locations. There was like a dude's house.
So they just called up friends, come to my apartment.
Yeah, they were on like a lot of like streets. Like there wasn't really anything exciting that happened. They went to like a backyard barbecue that was like super racist. Like it was just super freaking weird. So I would say $2 million. I haven't looked it up though. I don't know.
Actually, you know what, Patrick? As you're talking about this movie, if I can make a recommendation on top of yours here, there's a movie on Netflix called The Mend. That's like a very angry kind of like loser in life, but it's like very low budget. I bet like less than $200,000. It's all set in New York, and it's these like two brothers who sort of have a competition with each other who just can't get out of their own way. There's lots of like really painfully funny scenes. But that's like the low budget version of it. And I watched it a couple of years ago, and I think about the movie all the time. I actually highly recommend it for you, Patrick, at the very least. I would love to hear what you think of something like that. We don't have to do it on Frame Rate. The Mend, I think, is another one of these where it's like the exhausting main character.
Oh, wait,
you watched part of this, Jajaira. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like a really low budget. That one stars like Josh Lucas. It's probably his best performance. It's a really like, I mean, it's painful too, but it's like truthful. These Adult Swim are like, it's like real life. I'm like, that's not like real life. Real life people would just run out of the room, be like, stop being weird, I'm leaving. And so like, movie like The Lemons tend to get on my nerves.
No, absolutely. Okay, definitely going to check out The Mend. So I'm looking it up now. Yeah. It's weird. It's like a bunch of pictures of the guy who's starring in The Mend and then like Boris Johnson, who actually sort of looks like the guy who's starring in The Mend.
Yeah.
Like, they look similar.
Yeah, I think you might like it, Patrick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. All right.
Okay, so on to me. I just want to say this. I actually did watch Never Have I Ever.
Oh, yeah.
The recommend from Patrick last week. I binged the whole show. It was actually pretty great. So I also say you should keep that and watch it. It's really good. It was just a really interesting take about what it's like to also not to be just American and have like come from something else, because the main character is Indian. And so I totally, completely get that aspect of it. And I really appreciate it. And it's really actually funny and great in moments. It still does have that Netflix problem where I think it could be better. But, like the lead actress is what makes you love it.
Okay.
And a lot of strong acting. The mother's really great in it as well. And yeah, it's kind of cool because she is a nerd, but she's like happy that she's a nerd.
Right.
Because, she's Indian. She's going to be kind of a nerd because parents give a shit about that. They didn't come from their country to America to let you get bad grades, like, which is really true to life. So yeah. So second that. Okay, so I was going to recommend on HBO streaming Bad Education. Bad Education stars Allison Janney, Hugh Jackman, and then Geraldine Vishnu, who's from Blockers. And
oh, she's great. I know who you're talking about in Blockers. She's excellent, and she's the best thing in Blockers.
Yeah, so she's great. Yes, I thought it was the same girl on this Netflix show, but it is not. They're clearly, she's also a lot older than her, so they just have a lot of the same, you stand up for yourself, whatever, like, she's got spunk. The movie's actually about the biggest embezzling scam ever actually done in the public education system ever, where someone walked away with $12 million. And what's so interesting about the film, because I mean, like, if you even look it up, you'll know about this. So spoiler alert, if you don't want to, it's about a guy who's hiding the fact that he's gay.
Okay.
And so he's always talking about this wife that he used to have and how he's a widower and all this. And what I think is so interesting about it is he's this type of guy that everyone likes.
Yeah.
And then because of one of the people that's involved in the scheme, her idiot son, which I hate when people pretend their kids aren't stupid. That's like a common theme with me. Like, oh, great, you gave your son this chance. He's a moron. Just let him go. Don't help him out. That's what literally in real life and in this movie got them caught up after years of embezzling money. That their son went to all these different Home Depots and got caught using the school credit card. And the reason that I think it's really interesting is I had very, very, very low hopes for this. I just figured, hey, let's watch it. It's something good to watch. Yeah. And then just all these great performances by Hugh Jackman, a great performance by Allison Janney. And it's just like continuously stays interesting, really, because of Hugh Jackman. His likability really gets across what you need for this, because for years this was going on. They found out and they didn't realize it for another year because he was able to cover up the lies.
Wow.
And it's because it was this rich Long Island school that he was able to bring up from obscurity to the fourth best in the country. And all these kids were able to get into Ivy League schools. So he's like, if you guys are millionaires, I don't understand why we don't get paid more money. Him and all the other people were just buying extra houses and all this other crazy stuff. And so it's actually kind of interesting too about how easy it is to pull the wool over people's eyes as long as you know what they value the most, which is what I thought was interesting. Every time you're like, oh man, this is it for them. No, it's not, because he's found a way to angle it for himself, which I just think is so perfect in America right now. So yeah, so I definitely say keep it. It's actually not that long of a movie. I believe it's 2 hours long, and it's definitely one of the better HBO ones. It's a solid B+.
Who directed it, Jajaira?
It's this guy named Corey Finley, who did this movie and one called Thoroughbreds.
Oh, I've always wanted to see Thoroughbreds. I've heard good things.
Mm-hmm. So when I read more about it, part of the way that they get caught is Hugh Jackman gets interviewed by the school paper. And the girl's like, this is just a fluff piece on you. And he's like, it's only a fluff piece if you want it to be a fluff piece. You can always do more with what you're given. And that literally signs his warrant to his own demise.
Wow, that's really
Because
great.
she literally is like, and that is actually what happened in real life. That their school newspaper was the first one that blew the lid off of this. And it was a couple kids, not just one like in the movie, a couple kids that are sitting there that are researching the story and break the story. And actually the director, Corey Finley, or the writer, one of the two actually went to that school at that time when that was going down. Which is why it's so
freaking cool. That's awesome. That's really cool. To have sort of like a firsthand account of it. I mean, that's sick. That's great.
It's also because of so many scandals coming out now, right? Like Trump, anyone? Hey, totally. Use my vaccine, even though I am also someone that owns stock in that company,
right.
And so I just think it's so perfect for today. Even though I just said keep that, I also want to recommend one more thing that's on HBO, because I figure if you're watching something on HBO because you took your mom's login or you actually got it for yourself, guys, it's only $15. What are you doing anyway? You're sitting at your house. So anyway, it's the new Mark Ruffalo TV show.
I was curious about that.
That one's a rough watch. That is a rough watch. It's good, but it's intense.
I know this much is true is the name of the show. And it is shot really well. Mark Ruffalo's fantastic in it. I could only watch one episode, not just because they only have one episode, because I caught up to it. It's more that it's so rough. It's really about mental health. One of the brothers is schizophrenic, and it's just kind of too realistic to really watch more than 1 or 2 episodes, to be honest with you, at a time. Like, be glad you're given a breather, because they are just really raw. But that's what I love about it, because you see a lot of them and they're all kind of funny. Like when I see things about people with mental health problems lately, it's like, no, but it's okay. They're just like us. It's like, sometimes like it's that bad, bro, where it's not good and it's not going to get any better.
Well,
and I kind of like that.
And if I can add to that, it's just really interesting because every character is suffering. And like they sort of all put on this front, like, everyone does in many ways. You just sort of see them just even in the pilot episode, just like crumble. And it's just like you just feel their suffering and their pain. And it's just like a whole lot of it. It's just the story is so big and complex. And I think it's great also.
All right. Sounds like I have to watch that one.
Awesome.
I got to catch up.
So that's 2 that we're going to keep. Did anyone else watch any of the other movies that we recommended last week or the week before?
I have not yet, though. Coffee and Cream is going to get watched at some point soon.
You got to watch it, man. It's great.
I wish I had a chocolate shake because I would watch Coffee and Cream tonight.
Oh, that lemon sounds awful, Patrick.
Yeah, it sounds like a fucking lemon. Maybe that's why they called it lemon. They know that you should ask for your money back.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. No.
Not at all.
It does no. They made nothing out of those lemons. So it's two keeps and one cut, just like last week. So that's not okay.
Have we had 3 keeps? Not yet, right?
Nope, not yet. It's no
That's
fun
true.
when it's 3 keeps. Too many movies for everyone to watch. It's all. Okay, awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Yeah, and I think maybe next week we should try to find movies on Prime. So each one of us watch one movie that's available on Amazon Prime, so that way people can watch something that's not on Netflix, because let's give other people a try. How do you guys feel about that?
Sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
All right, cool, awesome.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this week for Frame Rate. As always, like, subscribe. We'll catch you next week.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
Awesome, bye guys.